Do you want to create some fancy special effects in your videos, but you aren't sure how to go about putting the video together? How do you know when and where to put in your text animations, sound effects, and motion graphics? In this video, we're going to look at 10 tips to help you plan and execute a great video with special effects. Let's dive in. Hey, it's Gord here. Welcome. If it's your first time here and it's your passion to make great videos, become a ninja at video editing and learn more tips on how to succeed with video and marketing on YouTube, then make sure you hit the subscribe button and click the bell notification icon so you don't miss a thing. So let's get started. In order to show you the 10 tips, I'm going to use a client video that I produced for the Stern Storming nationwide tour. You're going to see that this video is loaded with special effects, and it's going to be the basis for which I will review all the tips that follow. Here we go. Wow, that video is loaded with energy. Let's dive in. Tip number 1, produce a clean script. As you can see in this script, there's a lot of text and images and video clips throughout, and there's all kinds of details about the event, what the workshop courses are, and as well as like a call to action at the end. So you need to nail down the script, and in this case, we're not using an audio narration. It's all text because this is going out on social media and it's going to have music, so the text and the music suffice. But regardless, you want to have your text, and if there's audio, get those clean and ready as a first step. Tip number 2, create a storyboard. I like to create a storyboard that gives me a sort of sequential flow for what I'm going to create in the video. And on the left side, typically, you'd have your text or your script with some timing information and maybe some direction for sound, and as well as the audio narration elements. You would reference those, or the script, whatever approach you're taking. So on the right hand side, you can see there's a description of the elements that are going into each kind of slide or scene, and in this case we're dealing with scenes one after the other in the video. So in the first one, I've separated it out to have the boom, your 2018 digital marketing, and then I talk about the motion graphics and that we have a time-lapse clip that I wanted to start. So this gives you a sequential flow of how things fit together, one step after another, and this is what I use for my storyboard. Tip number 3, strategically set up the layering of the timeline tracks. The best way for me to show you that is just walk through how I've laid things out here as I built the video. As you can see down here on the bottom, I have my soundtrack that underlies, and then a special effect, and then above that is a track dedicated to my my core clips, and in some cases where there's stuff layered on top, a few more clips on top of that. And then above that I have this what's called like a filtering, and the key thing to recognize here is that the reason things are stacked on top of each other as well is because some visual elements actually layer on top so that they aren't hidden. So whatever's on the highest level will show on top. So there's a reason for the ordering of the stacking to ensure that the elements show properly. So for example, here I have what's called the border frame, which you see here, and it has to go at a certain level so that it overlays some of the video clips below, because I've in essence, cropped or zoomed into a certain part of the video clip. That's why this is at this level. And then above that, above the bordering, starts are my text elements and the special effects. So we have the motion graphics on the very top layer, and as you can see, there's a lot of those here, and these are motion graphic elements here that are overlaid on the border. And then we have the text, so the text elements are here on this track, these two tracks, and then actually the 3 tracks, because there's multiple layerings required on those 4 tracks. And then above, you can see several tracks were consumed for the motion graphics. Tip number 4, edit the media to sync with music and maximize the visual impact. As you can see in this video, there's like these 3 tracks here that have all of the sort of video clips, and then above it are all the special effects and other components added. So there's a lot that's tied to the timing of things with the music and the clips and how we edit them together. As you can see, all the different blocks here, there's a lot of cuts or images and other elements dropped in together. So just at the beginning, if I just play the beginning part for a second, you'll see that we have you see that we had the boom, and we had things move in terms of the motion graphics timed to the feel of the music. So there's a lot of detail work in there, and it's just very important that you manage the synchronization of your elements together with the music and sound effects. And here's an example at the end of a similar execution, and we're just going to see how that timing and things come out at the end. So you can see how the thud in the music and how it ended, it came to a still image. So again, all for effect, timing, and synchronization. Tip number 5, add sound effects to enhance the experience. Well, as you've already seen, this video starts out with the word boom and a big sound effect. And I want to show you that if I didn't have this sound effect here, look at how it would sound to start out. Compare that to this. Totally different effect. So you can see how important just the addition of sound effect elements can be to the overall experience and the emotional impact of anything. So combining the elements like sound effects with different visuals like time lapse and other things can have a great impact. Tip number 6, make sure that the text is easy to read. So when we look here in the video, you can see how nice the text stands out. It's got a nice drop shadow look. It's white, and it's on a sort of semi-transparent gray background, and everything pops. So how did we achieve that? Well, at first, if we turned off our filter layer and I turned off the second layer of text, the black, you're going to see here that the text is there, but look at how hard it is to read that word boom and against a busy background likewise. So all the text here against the busy background is very hard to see. So by making the text big, then I added in this filter layer with the gray, as you can see, which automatically makes the white a little better and easier to read. That's like a 50% transparency with a light gray, and you can see that over on the right hand side here. If we look here into the properties, you're going to see opacities at 50%, and we have the color associated with that. But now what I also did is I wanted the effect of, see how the gray is gradually fading out as you go along here right into the natural color. You can see it almost fades and it's gone. So that's like an added effect to show how we had the gray filter and then gradually eased it out. I'm going to talk about that in a bit. So there's a lot you can do to make the text show really well. And then as you can see, the white layer is there, but now if I bring in the black layer, you can see that, wow, look at how the text just pops. So, there's a lot of little things you can do to tweak. And unfortunately, the default drop shadow effect that comes when you stick text on the screen in Camtasia sometimes is not sufficient enough to make it stand out. You can't get it to show so well. So I will, on occasion, sort of double the letter set to make a more powerful impact. So you can see that if I turned off the white, the black's in there behind, and putting the two back in, and the black is really just it's just a slight offset from the white. So if I put it here and I'm on the black, I'm just moving with my cursors a little to the left or to the right to make that offset, and it's pretty cool, and it makes things stand out really well. Tip number 7, experiment with different transition effects. There are 2 particular transition effects I used in this video that are pretty neat. Right off at the start, you can see here if I mouse over the transition, which is this area here, for the word boom, there's the white and the black text drop shadow. I used the effect. It's called ripple. Now, what's cool about this is if I didn't have those effects, you would see that, well, first we're going to play it with the effect, and then I'll show you without. So you see how it sort of had this like squiggly, ripply effect. Now, if I take that off, watch how different this feels. So you can just click on it and delete the effect. So I have to delete it out of both the black and the white text. Now watch. We're going to start that again and just see how it plays. Do you see how it's just plain there? Totally different when you have the full effect in force. So you can see that the transition has a really neat effect by just adding it to the beginning here, just to do that ripple effect. Okay, now we're going to look at a second example where we used a neat transition effect. In this second example, I used what's called the circle stretch transition. And as you can see by the length of this element, it says it's 15 frames long. Here's another transition here. You can see by the length of it, it's 10. So not only can you set the transition type, you can also set the duration. And this is something, again, you tune for the effect that you're trying to execute on. So in this case, I'm just going to show you how circle stretch looks at the beginning of a track. It's on all the text elements here. So here we go. So as you can see how that brought things in, it doesn't quite look like a kind of a circle effect, but on the exit transition where it was also applied, which you can see here called circle stretch, this one, you know, you'd be able to better familiarize yourself with. So let's play that. So you saw that circle out. So circle stretch is just one of the many types of transitions. There's a whole set of them here you can play with. And I've used the ripple effect, which you see here. And then there's a stretch here. And then there's a circle stretch as well, somewhere in the list here. Circle reveal, I see. Circle rotate, cube rotate, sorry. And here's the circle stretch effect, right? So you can play with all of these different kinds of transition effects and apply them to your text like I did, and it just adds for a lot of coolness. Tip number 8, use custom animations for subtle or pronounced motion effects. You can take what's called a custom animation and add it to a timeline just by dragging it from there where you just saw I grabbed this from and drop it on a timeline. And in there you get what's called a beginning and end keyframe. And what you need to do there is just set the positioning of things for the end and positioning for the beginning. Well, it's mainly the end, and then adjust it, and then the length of the animation will determine the speed in which that happens. So I already have one of these. I just deleting that right here, and I applied it right at the beginning of the video. You see there's a video clip there with my Wall Street there. It's pretty static. The parts that are moving in it you can't see because they're in this outer area of the window. But when I got to this point here, I wanted to subtly zoom in. As you can see, the sign comes in closer, and then I stopped the zoom here. So it's a very subtle movement, but in the flow of things, it gives a certain nice added feel that there's, you know, something happening, and it wasn't just a static image in the background or a video clip. So watch, see again here. So it moved very slow, very subtle, in line with the feel of the music. I'm going to show you one other case where I applied this. Hang on. In this next situation, right here, you see Daryl coming out on stage, and as he's walking, you can see everything sort of moving forward with him at the same time. Now, if you look up here in the top left here, this is like the zoom and pan window, but you can also use it to see how the custom animation unfolds. You can see that the rectangle, how it's sliding to the left to help with that motion flow. So that just meant that when at this endpoint, I actually set the physical position of this video clip to be here, whereas at the start, it was here. So if I didn't have this animation, watch the difference. I'm going to cut that, play. So you can see he's walking out on stage, everything's fine. But if I put it back and we play it again, you'll see there's a little quicker motion to his walk movement on the stage. Sort of flows with him as he's moving forward. So you see that's using a custom animation. Similarly, you can use the zoom and pan effect Tip number 9 is to use edit cuts combined with zoom effects to increase the engagement. Now you're going to see here there's a series of 6 clips that are all of Daryl walking on stage, and what I did is I cut those clips up and applied some different animations and zooms to get an effect that shows him jumping around and sort of still going with the music. And just watch how this flows nicely. Here we go. So you can see there was a lot of jumping around to the beat of the music, and it's kind of cool when you can combine a variety of these things. So right here we had an animation, and there's an end keyframe. So I moved him so you can see this one we already looked at, how Daryl, I did it to move things along more quickly, and then I did a cut in the beginning of the next clip. So watch as I transition over. So it went from here and then jumped in close. So right away I just started out closer in, and you can tell sort of where you're at by when I click on here. This was a different clip altogether, so it had a different proximity. And then when I wanted to change things up in the middle of the clip, I added a zoom in effect, because you can see that under the zoom and pan, it scaled from 222% in this very short distance here. So if we press Control and scroll key, we can see that it's got a very short distance here, and that we went from there to there. So that was like a jump, and that was synced to the music when we had like a nice strong beat. And I do something similar to that right here. You're going to see here. I'm going to see, I'm presuming that's what happens here. Hang on. There, see? And that's a sort of a zoom cut, as it's often referred to, and that's how we jumped in. So you can see that these techniques just help to, spice up and give more visual joy in experiencing the video, so it's not boring. Tip number 10 is all about using motion graphic elements where appropriate. So I like these motion graphic special effects, and in this case, they're animated GIFs. As you can see that there's these lines that radiate out, as well as I have these like little, charger arrows and lines that go across. And again, everything is synced to music. And I just want to show you how this is kind of achieved. We're going to run it again just for a reminder quickly. Okay, so you can see how those come out. Now let's go see what you actually deal with in a raw sense in terms of what you have as an asset to work with. So for that line radiating burst at the beginning, the effect when I just first throw it onto the timeline, as you can see, it kind of fills the square video that we're using, but it doesn't really work for what I wanted to do. So what I needed to do was expand it out. And if you can see now, if I click on that, you can see how expanded it was. So you always will receive an asset. You'll have a certain kind of motion or flow, in this case, these animated GIFs. And I stretched it so that I got the effect so that the lines would just sort of fade out in the corners. So you always have to play with that. So you can see if I move this around, it would be all buggered up. So, again, it's all about coordinating what you want to achieve. And then likewise, when I had those charger arrows and I throw it on, you can see it just looks like this. It shows the charge bolt, and then it disappears, right? Now, I had to shrink it because I put these in the corners, and you see it has a drop down effect now, and then it's pulsing a little bit in the middle. So I've actually, not only did I change the scale, shrink it down, I put in a pulsing behavior. So it has but I put as a bounce in, which you saw it drop down, and in this case from the top. For the ones that go in the different corners, you'll see top, left, right, bottom, etc. So, and then in the middle, I changed that in a pulsate behavior, and for out, a shrink. So if you look at this one, because it came in from the top, let's just watch the behavior. See, it comes in, and then it shrinks to disappear. So we actually took that asset, the cool part is, and sort of changed the whole nature of how it played. Even though it had a default animated effect to it, we were able to alter it by using Camtasia behaviors. So I'm just trying to show you, you can get as creative as you want. and there's so much to do with it. So here's the group of those bolts and the dashed lines, just to see how they look. I'm playing that for you now. See, there was 2 sets of them. And there you have it. We've completed our 10 tips.
Wow, you won't be sorry if you plan your videos well so that you can produce consistent, great quality videos with or without all those special effects. So if you want to make awesome video content, do more with online video marketing, and grow your channel on YouTube, then be sure to click the subscribe icon on this page so that I can continue to share my journey with you to help you grow.